Hello, dear viewers. Today's date is August 28th, 2025, and this is our regular analysis of the situation on the map of military operations. At the moment, key shifts are being observed in the Pokrovsk direction, the Konstantinovka direction, and the Kramatorsk direction. In addition, there are updates from the Kupiansk and Sumy directions, which we will discuss and break down in this video. And before we begin, as usual, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to the channel. If you've been watching these videos more than once but haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Your subscription provides tremendous support in the growth of the channel. Thank you to everyone who has already subscribed. And now, let's move on to the Kherson direction. In the Kherson direction today, there have been no significant changes or strikes on Ukrainian armed forces positions. Let me remind you that all the markers highlighted in grey indicate strikes on temporary deployment points and Ukrainian positions carried out by the Russian aerospace forces over the past week. You can see the large number of such strikes on Ukrainian positions. Today, information comes exclusively from pro-Russian sources, stating that Russian forces came under attack on the islands near Hola Pristan. Several attacks targeted Russian positions there. Russian forces were also attacked in the area of Nova Kakhovka, again on the islands. For now, these are the updates, without any major shifts. Along the entire front line, FPV drones and artillery are actively operating. Let's move together to the Orikhiv direction. Starting with Mala Tokmachka, positional clashes continue. In the area of Mala Tokmachka, Ukrainian forces are conducting counterattacks against Russian positions. Despite this, Russian troops are gradually increasing pressure step by step. No noticeable advances were recorded today, but heavy fighting is ongoing here. And regarding this section near Stepnohirsk, according to pro-Russian sources, Russian forces advanced 3 kilometers in the area west of Stepnohirsk, along the Dnipro River. Ukrainian sources also confirmed reports from this spot. Indeed, Russian troops pushed forward by 3 kilometers attacking Ukrainian positions. However, the AFU pulled up reserves, launched a counterattack, and several Russian soldiers were taken prisoner. Thus, the Russian forces were unable to consolidate at this point. Still, they reached this stretch of the front. In the coming days, we may see an expansion of the control zone in favor of the Russian military. As for Stepnohirsk itself, Russian troops are trying to secure positions on the southern outskirts, but so far they haven't succeeded. These are the latest updates here for today. Let's move further along the map, and I'd like to remind everyone who comments why I call Russians Russians and Ukrainians Ukrainians. I use Russians because Russia is a multinational country, just like Ukraine. If I called Russians Russians, as in only ethnic Russians, then I would also have to call Ukrainians derogatory names. But this war involves many nationalities fighting for Russia and many nationalities fighting for Ukraine. So Russians remain Russians and Ukrainians remain Ukrainians. Now let's go to the settlement of Olhivska. As you know, earlier there was information that Olhivska had come under Russian control, but that information still does not match reality, since no confirming materials apart from news reports have been provided. And today we again see reports of positional battles north of Olhivska. This suggests that Olhivska remains under Ukrainian control or possibly in a grey zone. The only changes here are that Russian troops advanced about 500 meters in the forested areas, specifically in the tree belts. Beyond that, no major changes have been recorded here today. Next, we move to Kamyshevaka. Russian forces are gradually bypassing this settlement, and attacks are already being carried out on Ternov. In this area, a Ukrainian armored vehicle was destroyed. There is also footage showing Russian troops striking a temporary AFU deployment site with an FPV drone. In the coming days, assault operations may begin. If Russian forces take control of Ternov, then the assault on Kamyshevaka itself is likely to follow, as the settlement is practically in a semi-encirclement. For now, those are the updates here. Let's jump straight to the Pokrovsk direction. Changes are reported in the areas of Kotlin and Udakne. Let's begin with Udakne. Video material came from this spot showing Russian forward positions. Despite earlier claims that positional battles were already underway on the northern outskirts of this settlement, that information was slightly ahead of events. Today, fighting took place here. Russian positions were attacked, but as a result, the Russian armed forces advanced about 200 meters in this sector. All the areas marked in red have been fully cleared and taken under Russian control. Thus, it can be assumed that in the coming days, the entire eastern part may fall under Russian control, and within the next week, possibly the western outskirts as well. Now regarding the settlement of Kotline. As you know, earlier reports suggested that the southern part was under Russian control, including certain high-rise industrial buildings. Russian troops had secured these industrial structures and held them for a long time, but the majority of Kotlin remained under Ukrainian control. Today, however, reports confirm Russian advances here. There is a railway in this area. Previously, Russian forces were mostly south of the railway, just like they had been south of the railway in Udakna. Now, however, the entire territory marked in red has been cleared and brought under Russian control. Only a small section remains under AFU control, possibly already in the grey zone, and within the next day or two, it could also fall under Russian control. These are the updates here for today. Now let's move to Pokrovsk and Mirnohrad. In the Pokrovsk area, Ukrainian positions were attacked. A Ukrainian armored vehicle was destroyed here as well. No further changes have been recorded today. The only updates came yesterday, when video appeared from this area showing that the entire zone currently marked in grey has come under Russian control. Reports also indicate heavy fighting is underway for the high-rise buildings in this sector. We'll see how the situation develops in the coming days and update accordingly when new information appears. As for the settlement of Mirnohrad, a lot of conflicting information is coming from here. Let me remind you that earlier, Russian forces were recorded in this spot, and reports stated that Russian troops managed to enter the northern outskirts of Mirnohrad, and the assault of the settlement had begun. But today, reports have arrived from pro-Ukrainian sources as well as some pro-Russian sources, stating that Ukrainian troops counterattacked and pushed the Russians back. Thus, those Russian units that had managed to hold positions on the northern outskirts of Mirnohrad were driven out. For now, the map here shows no significant changes. Perhaps tomorrow or the day after, there will be updates and we'll cover them. There are changes west of the settlement of Suketske. Here, Russian forces expanded their control zone by 700 meters, took this strongpoint under their control, and are gradually moving from Suketska toward Rodinska. Earlier, reports already suggested that Russian troops advanced from Suketska, secured positions on the eastern outskirts of Rodinska, and slightly expanded their control zone. Some pro-Russian sources even claimed that Rodinska had effectively fallen under Russian control, but that information was inaccurate. Today, the only confirmed data comes from pro-Russian sources. This section of the front line has been fully cleared and placed under Russian control. Otherwise, this is the current situation in this area at the time of recording. Now let's move to the Konstantinivka direction. Several video materials and confirming information arrived from here. We'll start with Katarinivka. In the Katarinivka area, this section of the front line has been fully secured by Russian forces. Despite earlier claims that Katarinivka and Klebanbyk had fully come under Russian control, those reports were premature. Only today did we receive map updates in favor of Russian forces, meaning that Katarinivka has now indeed fallen under Russian control. Even though yesterday evening there were reports of positional battles north of Katarinivka, where both Russian and Ukrainian positions were attacked, we can now confidently say that Katarinivka is under Russian control, while Klebanbyk still remains under Ukrainian control. Russian forces also expanded their zone of control by 2 kilometers southeast of Katarinivka. This entire area is now cleared and under Russian control. Pressure is now being applied to Sherbinivka from 4 sides. Let me remind you that Sherbinivka is effectively cut off from supply lines, and the entire Ukrainian grouping located there is in a pocket, which is gradually tightening. As for the video materials from this area, in this spot, Russian forces advanced 600 meters, according to pro-Russian reports, though some sources only marked 200 meters on the map. Another video came from these forested areas where Russian forces secured positions along the supply route, specifically the railway. Thus, all the territory marked in red is fully under Russian control, cleared and demined, with advances up to 1 kilometer. We can see Russian forces moving toward the Klebanbyk reservoir, thereby isolating AFU units located on this stretch of the front. These are the latest updates here for today. Let's move further along the map. In the Siversk direction, no major changes have been recorded today. However, reports indicate that clearing operations continue in the Serebryansky forest, as well as in the area south of Serebryanka. This salient is being actively cleared and demined. No other updates have arrived from here, at least at the time of recording. Let's move on to the Kramatorsk direction. We'll begin with the settlement of Zarekne. As you know, Russian forces earlier secured the northern outskirts of Zarekne and then the southern outskirts. Reports suggested Russian troops were expanding their control here, but for a while it was unclear from which side, north or south. Today, video evidence arrived from this exact spot, showing Russian forces advancing 400 meters in the central part of Zarekne. The entire territory marked in red has now been fully cleared and secured by Russian forces. This makes the situation here much clearer. Now let's move further along the map to the settlement of Kolodizy. As you know, earlier the Russian Ministry of Defense claimed that Kolodizy had come fully under Russian control. But as often happens, Russian troops raise their flag on the outskirts of a settlement, after which video confirmation follows and the map is updated. From Kolodizy, only 2 videos have been released, one from this spot and one from somewhere on the southern outskirts. No footage has emerged from the western outskirts, which suggests that area is still in a grey zone or under Ukrainian control. Nevertheless, the map is being updated in favor of Russian forces. The Ukrainian side has acknowledged the loss of this section of the front line. This entire wooded area has now passed under Russian control. Thus, we can assume Kolodizy has indeed fallen to Russian forces, but we're still waiting for further confirmation. Once it arrives, we'll update the map. Now let's move to the settlement of Shandryholov. Earlier, reports claimed that Russian forces had taken most of Shandryholov under their control, but again, those were premature. The real changes have taken place east of Shandryholov and south of Zelena Dolina. This entire territory has now come under Russian control. Here, Russian forces advanced up to 4 kilometers and also moved east of Seredny. All this area is now under Russian control. Despite the Russian Ministry of Defense declaring that Seredny is fully under their control, other reports indicate positional fighting is still ongoing inside the settlement, so it is not yet fully secured. Russian forces are also expanding control and clearing the salient near Karpivka. As of today, this entire stretch of the front line has come under Russian control. Let's move further along the map. In the area of Lazova, Russian forces expanded their control zone and cleared this salient. All the territory marked in red is now under Russian control. Video also arrived from this spot, showing Russian positions coming under attack. Reports also indicate that Russian troops engaged in battles for Borisivka-Andreevka and advanced about 800 meters. However, this information came only in the form of news reports, so in the coming days, we may see video confirmation from here as well, and the map will be updated accordingly. For now, Borisivka-Andreevka remains under Ukrainian control. Otherwise, these are the updates for today. Now let's move to Kupiansk. At the time of recording, reports came in that Ukrainian forces are counter-attacking Russian positions. Earlier, Russian troops secured this entire territory and brought this section of the front under their control. But at the time of recording, Ukrainian forces were counter-attacking Russian positions on the northern outskirts of Kupiansk and preventing Russian troops from consolidating in Sobolivka. Russian positions are also being counter-attacked here. Thus, it can be concluded that Russian forces are trying to hold positions in Sobolivka in order to take physical control of the supply road leading to Kupiansk, which would greatly simplify assault operations on the city. Once Russian troops fully control this supply road, all of this territory will be cut off from resupply, forcing the AFU to abandon this stretch of the front, since the Oskil River runs here. These are the updates for today. Moving further along the map, in Vovchansk, positional battles continue. In the Lipivka direction as well, positional fighting is ongoing without major changes. Now let's move to the Sumy direction. Here, positional battles are taking place near Yunakivka. Russian forces are clearing the remaining areas of Yunakivka and expanding their control zone south and east of the settlement. Meanwhile, Ukrainian troops are attacking Russian positions near Alexeyevka, launching assaults from Malakorchakivka and also from Andriivka. For now, Alexeyevka remains under Russian control.